Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Believe in Texans podcast. This is your host, Cecil Shorts the third. We are going live right now, presented by Bet Online. And if you haven't heard the news, you can see the banner at the bottom of the screen. The Texans have fired Bobby Slowik, offensive coordinator. They have also let go, if I'm not mistaken, the offensive line coach Chris Strouser and assistant offensive line coach Cole Popovich. So initially, my thoughts. Number one is going to be honest with you. I'm excited, and I'm not excited because uh, Bobby was a bad guy or anything like that. I'm excited because the Texans are serious about winning. And they're serious about doing it right now. When you make the moves in the offseason as you did last free agency, bringing in Joe Mixon on the offensive side, bringing in Stephon Diggs, bringing in Daniil Hunter and others, you're in win now mode. And I got worried that okay, throughout the year, we know D'Amico was good friends with Bobby. They were with each other with the San Francisco 49ers organization. They have history together. Will he, as a young head coach, and you see your offense struggling throughout the year, will he be bold enough, be serious enough, have the courage enough to make a move as the offensive coordinator is not producing? Can he make the move as a head coach and say, hey, I'm sorry, Bobby, but you got to go. We got to move on a different direction? This tells me Nick Casario. This tells me the McNairs. This tells me D'Amico Ryan. They are so serious about winning this football games this year. And it's a big deal. It's a huge deal. Now, when you look at Bobby and why he struggled, in my humble opinion, I've been kind of saying it all year. I think he's been the main problem when it comes to the offense not having a good year. And honestly, coming into the year, I thought fireworks were going to happen. When you brought in Stephon Diggs to go along with Nico Collins, to go along with what you already have in Tank Dell, to go along with Damian Pierce and Joe Mixon, when you bring these guys together after a great rookie year that CJ Stroud had, it was just not just local, not just in house, but nationally known. Hey, this Texans offense is going to be for real. This Texans offense is going to be serious. And all the expectations out there, like, hey, they're a true Super Bowl contender. They can not only they're not only going to win the AFC South, but they have a chance to make some real noise deep in the playoffs, especially the way your young quarterback, has been playing the last, let's say, over a year. But as the season went on, you just saw regression and regression and regression in CJ's play. And if you look at CJ's stats, don't get it wrong, he still played at a high level. It just wasn't the way we all expected. It wasn't the way what we wanted to see. We wanted him to take the next step. And it seemed like Bobby could not get on the same page with CJ. It seemed like Bobby and the offensive line coaches that got let go, it seemed like they struggled at times this year. They struggled a lot when it looked at the minute early in the season, excuse me, week 4 against Minnesota. Minnesota didn't bring tons of blitzes, but they did do tons of stunts. And it looks like the offensive line struggled, but early on, we're like, hey, whatever, let's move on from it. They can bounce back. Going midseason, another NFC North opponent. They did the same thing. They start throwing different stunts, different defensive tackles and defensive ends switching when the ball is snaps, different blitzes. And they're only bringing 4 or 5 guys when honestly you have 5 or 6 guys blocking, and the offensive line just look confused. And when that happens, especially throughout the season, it continues to happen. You have to, if you're serious about winning, you have to make change. And I love the fact that they really went out their way, took their time, right? D'Amico said, give me a week if we're going to evaluate everybody and see what happens. And he took his time and said, hey, the offense needs to change. Coming to the year, in my opinion, I thought the defense would be kind of the one that's struggling a little bit, and the offense would be the strong suit of the team. Well, honestly, it was the opposite. It was the opposite. And as a team, I don't think you regressed, right? As a team, I think you ended the same way you did last year, lost in the divisional round, similar record, lost in the second round of the playoffs. But now it's about getting over the hump. And you got to do that. And you're trying to do that within your quarterback's rookie year. I'm sorry, his rookie contract, right? Going into year 3. This is the year that CJ needs to propel. He needs to be a top 10 quarterback in this league. He needs to be given the keys to the offense and really drive that thing and command the line of scrimmage. And you just didn't see that in a Bobby Slowik type offense. His rookie year, I get it, but his second year, I just don't understand. And then the regression that CJ had, his rookie year, he was going read 1, read 2, read 3, looking for the check down. In his second year, we didn't see that as much. He was worried about the pass rush. He was worried about maybe he just wasn't his platform wasn't as clean, so he was worried about people getting close to him. He was throwing all off accurate passes, which is not It's not something that he used to doing. He's a very accurate quarterback. We do with guys in his face. He's extremely accurate. So when you can't meet those expectations as an offensive coordinator to come into the season, when you can't continue to develop and have your quarterback ascend, when your offensive line continues to struggle and you revamp them and you move them around multiple times throughout the year, it's time to go. It's time to go. So I commend the Texans. I commend the Texans for taking a chance and really focus on winning. I commend them for making this decision. I commend D'Amico. It's not easy, especially when that's somebody you kind of came in the league with and you developed together with and you brought him in with you. That, it's hard. And it's interesting what a year does. Because last year, Bobby Slowik was getting head coaching opportunities. he was interviewing left and right during the playoffs during that time, and then now in the same year, same cycle, he's been let go. But I'm sure he'll bounce back on his feet. So now my question is, okay, who are some possible candidates you can bring in? All right, who can you bring in to really get this offense where it should be, right? Who can handle the load of a offense with so many weapons, right? And there'll be new weapons this year because Stephon Diggs, you don't know if you're going to sign him back. Tank Dell most likely won't be back next year. You'll have Nico, you'll have Joe, but you got to bring in some guys, right? But who can with who Nick can bring in and D'Amico, who they draft and who they pick up in free agency, who can have this collective of athletes, this collective of talent, and really put the best product on the field out there, right? Can you do that? Because if your offense plays well with how the defense is playing and ascending, you are a true Super Bowl contender. So some names come to mind, and y'all may be like, Cecil, why are you bringing this guy's name up? Just go with the flow here. You got me? First one, Mike McCarthy. Oh, I'm ducking. I'm ducking. I know y'all hate Dallas. I get it. Oh, I'm ducking at a rival. But Mike McCarthy knows how to win games. Mike McCarthy knows how to call an offense. Mike McCarthy has had success at calling offenses. He understands, hey, how to develop a quarterback, right? He understands what he needs. He's played. He's coached with Aaron Rodgers. He coached with Dak Prescott. He coached with multitude of good quarterbacks, and he knows how to get the best out of his quarterbacks. He's a guy that he's upper in age, so he's not necessarily leaving or looking for the next head coaching job right away. He'll be around. And also, I think he can help D'Amico in different areas. So Mike McCarthy comes to mind first, right? Boom, going next. Doug Peterson. Oh, he helped Carson Wentz, Nick Foles. He made Nick Foles a Super Bowl MVP. Think about that. Nick Foles, a career backup. Nothing wrong with that. You make a lot of money doing it. I get it. Trust me, nothing wrong with that. But Nick Foles is not looked at as a true starter until Doug got his hands on him and started making things happen. Carson Wentz, he had Carson Wentz rolling up until, Carson Wentz got hurt. So Doug Peterson, and then he's like, oh, well, in Jacksonville is a different situation. And I think Doug is still a darn good coach. It's just sometimes you're not the right person for that job, or sometimes it's just too much of a mess going on to really make an impact, right? But Doug can make a huge impact here in Houston. I think he could be exceptional when it comes to him calling plays and helping develop CJ and get the most out of this offense. Another person that comes to mind, just won national championship with Ohio State, Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly could do some serious things. I think he could come in and use his creative side. He's had success on offense in the league. He's had success on offense in college. Matter of fact, he knows a lot of these college guys coming in. He's recruited them. He's played against them. He's scouted them. He's played with some, right? So to have that mind, to know, okay, who can fit in the type of system I want to run, that's an advantage in itself. So Chip Kelly, I think, could really do some damage. And today's offense, too, honestly, with a lot of younger quarterbacks taking over the realm, you see kind of the older quarterbacks leaving, the younger quarterbacks taking over. When you look at that realm, it's more of a college style or a creative style offenses that are out there. So Chip can really use his mind, do some good things, and help CJ and those guys go forward. This is a guy, the next guy I'm going to mention is not really on the, I wouldn't say same level. This has experience, right? Just an experience. Because you look at those three guys I mentioned, all three of those guys have had success as a head coach in the NFL or college. They had success as an offensive coordinator in the NFL or college. Those three guys I mentioned also, again, are all head coaches and can bounce ideas off of D'Amico. D'Amico can come to those guys with confidence because they've been there and they've done that, they had success, and ask them different questions. They can help D'Amico with developing more situational awareness, right? When it comes to different scenarios throughout the game that he may uh had some questionable calls or struggle with, or just, hey, he can just bounce ideas off of them. So I think those three guys, former head coaches, really good at their craft, can help D'Amico and the offense and the Texans as a whole in a big way. But this next name, Nick Coley, younger guy. He was the passing game coordinator the last couple of years with the, I'm about to say St. Louis Rams, the LA Rams. He's been under McVay for a while. He knows offense. Anybody under McVay, I'm just being honest with you. Anybody under McVay, I'm a trust. I'm gonna have some type of bias towards because I feel like McVay is the type of guy that spreads his knowledge. He thinks uniquely. He's very creative, and he's going to hire young guys under him like he was a super young guy coming in that are hungry, wanting to win, and want to get after it. And Nick, if I'm not mistaken, is one of the hottest guys to be an OC up next. Right, his name is out there. He was the passing game coordinator this year, and you got to think about it. He was a passing game coordinator for Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Puka, guys that had tons of success together. He was helping Matthew Stafford go through his progression. That's what passing coordinator means. Passing game coordinator means he puts together plays, he puts together packages based on what the defense does on first down, on third down, on second down. So he's able to communicate with Matthew Stafford saying, hey, on 3rd and 3, we're expecting cover 0 here, man. So on 3rd and 3, cover 0, make sure you check to this play, or make sure you're reading on the left side because we have an out here by our slot guy. He can break it down for you. And that's what you want from an OC, a guy that can relate to the quarterback, that communicate with the quarterback in an effective way that he can go out there and produce and put out in the field. So this guy is very intriguing. Nick Coley, he is the passing game coordinator, and he's highly respected around the NFL. Anybody with McVay is highly respected, but he's highly respected around the NFL as being the next guy up, for the next young guy up for a possible offensive coordinator job. Plus, he kind of, if you're McVay, you're in that Shanahan tree, you're kind of running the same similar offense, so there's similar terminology, there's similar schemes, there's similar concepts. That could really work in CJ's favor of being in under Slowik for the last couple of years and kind of having that same terminology. Now, my last candidate that I have that just popped in my mind, if you go in-house, right, because those 4 names I gave you, Doug Peterson, Mike McCarthy, Chip Kelly, Nick Coley, they all were out of house, right? They're all around the league somewhere. But Gerard Johnson, quarterback coach the last couple of years with the Houston Texans, I wouldn't look past him. And I'm going to tell you why. Gerard Johnson and CJ Stroud have a very, very good relationship. And when it comes to getting the best out of your players, I'm a big component of relational. Like when you have a relationship with a player, that relational piece will help develop and help ascend that particular player. So when it's time to hold that player accountable, when it's time to get on him, when it's time to praise him, when it's time to teach him, he can accept it and then go out there and put it on film, and then go out there and execute at a high level because he knows I have a relationship with him. He's coming from a place of love. He wants the best for me. He wants to see me be the best I can be. And that's huge. And if you look at it, people are like, oh, you got to get rid of the whole offensive staff. No, you don't, because you don't know how much of an impact that Gerard and others had on the offensive coordinator Bobby Slowik's play calling. They could have had none. Every play caller is different, right? You don't know how much Gerard had an influence on CJ, how Gerard had an influence on the offensive line, whatever the case may be. But Gerard Johnson, I think he can be a sneaky pick. I think he can be very good for this offense. Every coordinator has their own things they want to do. Every guy has their own way they want to do things. But to keep a guy in house, to me, is kind of a smart move to hire a guy within. A guy that knows CJ well, that can get the best out of CJ. It's a guy that CJ trusts, right? Bringing in a guy that, from an offensive standpoint, some of his terminology may be similar to what CJ already has said, right? My only knock on that is if you hire a guy in-house that's never called plays before, I think you should have him, you bring in a guy that has called plays before, like a mentor. So, for example, if you bring in a Gerard Johnson, bring in a Kubiak, bring in, again, a Doug Peterson. Maybe he doesn't want to coach this year, but he'll be an assistant to the offensive coordinator. He'll be a mentor to the offensive coordinator. Because to me, Bobby Slowik was left out to dry. Nobody on that staff, or offensive staff, called plays before. So who did he really have like ideas to bounce off of? When he struggled, who did he really have somebody to lean on? D'Amico's a defensive guy. Now, I'm sure he knows offense. You got to know offense to coach defense, right? But he's a defensive guy. He's never called offensive plays before. So why make that same mistake again is where I'm going, right? So if you do hire a younger guy or a guy that's never called plays before in the league, bring in a mentor, bring in somebody that can help school him up, right? Maybe he's an assistant to him. Somebody can bounce all ideas off of. Somebody can help him really become a good OC in this league because the Texans are in win now mode. And that's exciting. If you're a fan of the Houston Texans, you should be elated right now because they are serious about winning. And I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful that the next offensive coordinator will get this offense rolling and continue to develop CJ Stroud. That's the most important thing. When you have a guy that has so much talent as CJ, you have to find a guy that's going to get the most out of him, especially when you're in win now mode. So that's going to be it for today's episode of Believe in Texans with the breaking news. Again, Texans fire offensive coordinator Bobby Slowik. We'll see what happens in the coming days of who they go after. I gave you a few names. Don't forget to like, subscribe, wherever you listen to your podcast. We're on that platform, Believe in Texans, and I'll catch y'all next week.